Hey, Chef, welcome back. We are at week 3, coaching NainwalPhysics. Just to look at the ratings, the chess.com rapid is about the same, peak ratings the same, but the chess tempo peak standard has gone up 20 points from 1029 to 1049. So I think we'll actually start talking about tactics first in this video and then look at the games after, just because I think more work has to be done on the tactics instead of the actual games in terms of the um, training suggestions from week 2. So like before we talked about try to do 5 chess tempo standard puzzles, 3 minutes each, and do at least like one rapid game each day. And so we'll take a look at what's been happening. I've seen some improvements for this first bullet point, and the second one has always been there. I think they always play a lot of rapid games, but now I think it's been about like one a day. Maybe some days missed here and there, um, that's not really too important. And I'll make some suggestions again at the end of the video. If not, then shortly while we're uploading, I'll fill this out. And so let's get into week 3. So not much correspondence. I think they've just been training, and I didn't really have anything else um to really suggest about how to train or anything. It's really just follow these bullet points because under 2000 for sure, like tactics is just so huge, and you don't really want to overload with too many other things to worry about. And also, when we look through the games, we see, like week after week, that the basic tactical errors are still there, and um, and once those are gone or like much less consistent, then it'll make a lot more sense to work on a lot of other chess strategy type things. And I might not be the best person to teach those things at this point, but I could like easily say, okay, pick up this book or watch this video to learn some of those things. But it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's kind of pointless to try to work on too much of that stuff now, just because when tactics are like the way they are, where you might just hang a queen randomly in the middle of a game, like that's really just all you need to focus on until it's gone. And that alone, like I always say, it'll be worth multiple hundreds of rating points. So at his level, so that's why I don't think getting to 1200 will be that difficult in the grand scheme of things, as long as they're like following the suggestions of doing the tactics and playing some rapid. Even the rapid, like I don't think there's been periods in my chess development where I've done like the one rapid game a day, but I know it's probably possible to get by without it as well. But it's always just good to play longer time controls if you can. Because a lot of people, they might just do only blitz or only bullet, and blitz is fine when you're working on openings later on, but really rapid gives you enough time to try to think about what you're doing, and there's less excuses when you make a really silly error. But in bullet, like you see, like no matter how good you are as a human, you can make some very basic blunders in bullet. And so it's like, yeah, so rapid just puts things to the test and keeps you honest. Okay, so, and also last time we looked, we saw a graph similar to this where they started at 1013 and fell to 991 in a bad streak of puzzles, where I pointed out that they were playing too fast. So this is their solve time, this is the average solve time. And so yeah, just a lot of under a minute. Like this was the best attempt where they did like 58 seconds, but then the average solve time for like all people was also high. So it makes sense that it's higher, but the fact that all of them were just way under a minute for the most part was like a cause of concern, because it's like you can be stuck. This goes back to what I was saying before. You can be stuck and you pick up like different openings, pick up a strategy book, learn some end games, but all of that is just a distraction from working on what's happening here. Because if you're not doing good with time management, then um, it's going to take a whole lot of other things to compensate for that, when you could just take more time and instantly see results. And that's actually what we do see here. So if we look here, started a similar rating from the bottom and going up. They started at 1017 here and went all the way up to 1049. So they've been taking more time. Like again, I suggested 3 minutes per puzzle before making the first move. They've been doing 1 minute. I'm pretty sure I said, or at least try to do 1 or 2 minutes. And it seems like they took that approach, which is fine. So 1 minute 58, 105, 132nd, which isn't, don't like to see, but they got it right at least. And then like 2 minutes, 1 minute. So this is a much different graph than this, just looking at the solve time. But also it's a really good visual representation of how they're playing way too fast. You see all these reds. Now they're taking my suggestion of playing slowly, and you see all this green. And that's like the whole point. So this is really good to see, and they've hit like all-time high goal. So this 1049, like I said up here, that's their peak standard rating right now. So that's going well. What the only complaint I would have then, because I'm not gonna stress, like if they're doing 1 minute most of the time at least, which is great, is that with the 3 minutes and doing 5 puzzles, the goal was to do like 15 minutes of chess tempo per day. So if they want to do like 1 minute per puzzle, that would be about 15 puzzles. But then, and I would say like around 10 puzzles based on, because sometimes they do go to 2 minutes. So like about 10 puzzles per day would be nice to see, but this is like almost 10 puzzles for the week. So not as much activity here, although it is great that they're getting things right, but you would also see more progress if you do a little bit more practice as well. So basically just keep it up, but try to do like 15 minutes a day, and over the long term, like it will add up a lot more than if you just did a little bit. Because there's some people that train too much and burn out, but then there's also cases of training too little. And I know they do tactics on chess.com as well, and they're hitting some all-time highs on those puzzles as well. But again, the main thing about chess tempo is that I can track like all the progress that they do on the site, whereas on chess.com, I can only see like the last 25 puzzles. Um, and maybe it's not that big of a deal, but there are cases where like I would have liked to see what was happening more in the past than what's available, instead of having to worry about checking every day to see, because if one day to do like 50 puzzles in a day, I would miss a whole lot of data that I otherwise would be able to see easily on chess tempo. So okay, um, so that was all of that. And I kind of just talked about that, and also talked about in these paragraphs about when you play other players, sometimes you'll play someone and they're just playing extremely fast, and sometimes you might want to try to match their speed, but you don't really want to fall into that trap. Like you find some pace that's comfortable for you, and you don't worry about if they're playing way too fast, because likely what's going to happen, especially if they're also rated 1000, they're going to be making way more blunders, and you just have to look for where are they leaving this hanging, what can you attack, and you'll just win a whole lot of games. And they'll have a whole lot of time, like maybe they'll spend 2 minutes out of a 10-minute game by move 30, but you'll have a much better position if you're just taking your time and slowly picking up whatever pieces they're leaving behind. And it's like they could be a way stronger player just by taking more time, but they're literally just nerfing themselves. And this is like, is basically this graph illustrated perfectly. So you take less time, you're more likely to get a lot of red. You take more time, you're likely to get a lot of green. So okay, now then also talk about, ideally you want to work on like both aspects of tactics. So doing like some fast tactics and learning patterns, and also doing more like chess tempo and slow calculation puzzles. And at some point, I might recommend you get the app Chess Tactics for Beginners, and I'll actually make a video one day showing like why I like the app and how to train. It's very similar to how I learned like the end games and how I plan to become really good at Puzzle Rush. And I was even coding my own app based on that app. but there's no way like I'll be able to get it to where other people could use it anytime soon, and I'm focused on a whole lot of other things anyway. But um, but but yeah, chess tactics for beginners is gonna be a good one to go for because one, it's under $10, so it's really cheap. If finance is a thing, I could just buy the app for them if I really think I wanted to use it. But also, it has like 1,000 or so like really basic tactics, like 1 to 3 move tactics. It also has a sequel. It might be titled Chess Tactics for Intermediate Players, but um, but yeah, so that's gonna be really good because unlike like Puzzle Rush and even on Chess Tempo and everything, there's a whole lot of repeating themes, and I've talked about before my tactics playlist. I show like 20 different examples of the same tactic because they just have like like when they put millions of tactics on a tactics server, they're not getting a whole lot of unique themes at the lower levels. And so like a real concise book kind of gives you that like exactly the knowledge you need to know. But that's a topic for another video. But I did write a little bit about like those thoughts. And then one thing I did encounter a puzzle that was similar to the game we looked at. So first I will open up the puzzle, so in the practice mode. So if you want, you can pause the video and think about what you would do here. Okay, now let me make sure I'm recording while I'm doing that. Okay, so if you're looking at checks, captures, and threats, there's only one check in the position that we can do. That is moving this pawn, because then it's like a discover check. And also we can then take this pawn and try to promote. So we do that, take, and like their knight can't really get anywhere because of that and this, and I guess this would be like their only try, but chances are they're not going to be able to cover this square at all. And so you just like promote. And let me find the game. It's that reminded me of this game that we looked at. Remember the opposite color bishop ending? And the thing about it was, so this was the main blunder where they allowed the king to get in and then promote. But at this case, the best move, like when we turned on the engine, it was g4, and that's a very similar discover and check. And we can take the pawn and try to promote. Now the problem is this is only a draw because it's bishop opposite color endings, and the bishop would be guarding the pawn, so yeah, you can't really make any progress because they would just take. But it still like goes to show that a lot of these tactical patterns that you see, they do help you out in other situations. Because I said last week that you either, to avoid blundering here, you either have to see that they could go here and promote, or you can see the best idea in the position, which would be trying to go for this idea. So yeah, so the more you do tactics, the more you'll be able to find similar types of moves that you can apply to your games. Okay, so that out of the way, we'll look at the chess tempo. Wait, okay, yeah, this is so there, we left off around, man, I had it highlighted, I think. No, we actually left off around here. This was the last one we looked at. And there, but you see, like, there's a whole lot of green since then. So like all this red, and I said, okay, try to spend more time. And like here, they definitely spent too little time, but they still got a lot of green. Wasn't until around here. I might have mentioned it again, and they said, okay, they'll start. So let's take a look at. We'll just take a look at these reds. Now these were all. This was 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. So again, not too much time. This one was a good attempt though, because they spent almost a minute. But let's take a look at the 30-second ones first. Let's see what's going on. Okay, now first thing is we notice we have these two rooks on the same file, and there's a lot of stuff happening. We could take this or we could take this. Now we take on d8 and they take back, and then they take back with the knight, and then we just trade a material. So we can look at this instead. And the idea being, well, if they take here, we can take the rook, and now we've won rook and a knight, and we only gave up a rook. Now if we go here and they go here, then we go here with check. So either way, we're going to win material with this move. And I think this is probably going to be like the most likely mistake. And it's just because maybe when they're calculating, they're not really, they're just going for it. They don't really see a clear win. They just think it probably is just this. But it's possible to just calculate that no matter what they do after you take the knight, you will win material. And that's why, like, I think it's important to just spend more time on these tactics. So they take with that, and then we go here. Now if we look at the mistakes, we see like, yeah, rook takes d8 is the most common move by far. But as I said, after this, you just have a knight versus a knight. Like, where is your tactic? You can't just play a move if it leads to something that's even and you don't see any way to win. Because you saw, like, before I played this, I explained every situation that they could do and that it would be winning material. So after this, you would have that, and then we have a rook, and they have a rook, but we have a knight and they don't. Or they could go here, and then you give this check. And then if they move, you could take the rook. So here again, we have a rook and a knight, and they don't have anything. Okay, and now, again, I didn't open it in a new tab, so let's see, this is the next one to look at. Okay. So it's like, is it taking a free queen or giving this check first? So if we take the queen, they can take our rook, and I don't think I like that, because then we just have a queen versus two rooks. So we should probably take the rook first and then take the queen. And again, the most common mistake is likely going to be just taking the queen. Yeah, queen takes d4, played 28,000 times, 2,800 times. And it's really just, okay, yeah, you see you're winning a queen, but you have to look, you want to do this blunder check. What check caption threats do they have after you do this? Well, they can do this, and now, like, rook is worth 5 points, so they got 10 versus your 9. And this is still like an imbalance where I don't really know how you determine whether you want to have the queen or the rook. Like, some grandmasters could probably tell you, and I don't really remember any rules that I've read before. I just know in general, I find it easier to play with the queen because they have to keep really careful that their rooks are connected, or they can get forked and then lose one of the rooks, and then they're just going to lose the game. Because queen versus rook is just going to be a win for the queen most of the time. So it's definitely harder to play with the two rooks, although in some cases the two rooks is objectively better. But like in here, you can just avoid all of that by having queen versus rook in the first place. So yeah, always be careful, even when you're about to just win material. The only time when you can do a move like this without looking at anything else is if you know it's guaranteed checkmate. Because then, yeah, you could have found a better move or faster checkmate, but as long as you find a checkmate, you're doing good in a practical game. But when you're just winning material, a lot of stuff can happen. Like, imagine if this pawn was on g7 and you did this, then you would fall into back rank mate. So yeah. Okay, and I did it again. I didn't open a new tab. Alright, but I mean, the point is, okay, there was that one puzzle that's like, they spent 1 minute on. So let's take a look. Now, this one, the first moves that are coming to mind are, well, I see this knight check because hits the king, hits the undefended bishop. Now, is there anything better? I don't think so. This doesn't really attack anything else, and the knight would just have to move back. I don't really see anything that this queen can do that's useful. And I don't see anything that this knight can do that's useful, so it's looking like this is probably the way to go. Now, similar to the last puzzle, when you do see something that's free, you do want to do a blunder check and see what else can they do. Because in the practical game, like this queen here and pawn being able to take and move up the board looks kind of scary, and this bishop on this diagonal, the queen gets on it as well. They could be threatening checkmate. But there's not really anything going on, but it's important to kind of look at it because it could like be a like Magnus would still find a way to beat you as white from this position probably. But yeah, it was just a fork and picking up the bishop, and okay. But they did get a lot of puzzles right. So again, like my only complaint would just be trying to do a little bit more because I've done like two puzzles. Is this today Monday? Yeah. So two puzzles, two, three, one. So just not a lot. Um, so I like at least to see like 5 or 10, where they're doing 1 minute per puzzle like they've been doing. Um, so yeah, so I do see like we do see and appreciate the progress and the commitment to spending more time on the puzzles, and I think you see that it's been working out pretty well. The thing is, now the main weakness is just consistency with doing a slightly higher volume of puzzles. Because again, I'm only asking for 15 minutes per day on chess tempo, and so yes, that's kind of what I want to see for you to improve like the fastest over the long term. Okay, now, um, okay, we'll take a look at the puzzle that was gotten right. Well, let's take a look at the 2 minute one. So they spent the most time on this one, but they did get it right. Okay, so queen is attacked, so we know from last video we can discard a ton of moves that don't deal with this threat in some way. This doesn't look good because stuff could take. This looks like the most likely move, because nothing else can take the queen. Like if here, the queen can just take. So this is like a good check. And it cuts off a lot of the king's ability. Like this would be the only square it could go to. And so if this is the only square it can go to, then we're just looking for a check to try to checkmate them. We can't do this because they could take, but we can give this check, and that's actually going to be checkmate because nothing else is guarding d4, or nothing else is attacking d4, I should say. So we go up here, then we go here, and that's checkmate. And I'm actually collecting this pattern for my puzzle rush patterns videos. So at some point I will give a whole lot of examples of this because this is an interesting one. There's a lot of different ways it's kind of set up. But yeah, this was just like a checkmate at 2, look for forcing moves and try to calculate, visualize, but they did get it right over time, so that's great. Alright, so that's it for the tactics. Let's see how long we've gone, 22 minutes. Now in terms of the games, so last week was the 31st, so pretty much we could look at some of these games. So you got 3 wins and 3 losses. And let me load up each one. Okay. And don't want to use an engine right now. Just go to the beginning of the board and flip the board for each one. Not gonna lie, this is actually a thing that Lead Chess does a lot easier, because if you it'll just auto flip to the player when you look at their history. Also, their study feature, they let you choose what perspective for it to be. So I like that much better than the chess.com library. But I did try to like it. Okay, so all right, so let's see, e4. I might have looked at some of these games before, like just on my own, but I don't really remember. So I'm kind of just going through it, somewhat blind. This is everyone else. Let me actually see how often is this happening. If we don't have any, okay, so this is what they're playing. They're playing d4 against when they play e5 a lot. And I'm kind of debating on if I want to give opening suggestions or not, because I'm not a big fan of this move. And also, they do it from the black side as well. Like they play the Scandinavian, so when they go e4, they're bringing this pawn out, and it just gets their queen out early. Now this is a legit opening, but it kind of violates some like opening principles. And in some cases, I do see it getting him into trouble. And it's like he found a way to kind of play that as white. Although, no, he goes for the gambit. I'm gonna say if he took with the queen, it would be kind of similar. But he does go for this gambit, so. But again, I'd probably, my normal automatic thing is just knight f3 here against almost everything, unless they give you the center. So like if you go here and they do something like this is often the best move. Or they go here, this is often the best move. But when they go here, go on d4, I usually like knight here. And even like against this, like I don't really like d4, I would just go knight f3. But I'm not really gonna try to change the openings just yet, just because, like as we'll see, it's usually just the tactics in the end. The only argument for it would be they're kind of giving up material in the beginning, which I don't like, but it's okay, I guess. But as long as they're getting like winning positions in the middle game somewhere, then I'm not really gonna stress about the opening, as more than I already have. So far, things seem fine. They are down material. I do need to see, what does the engine say? Like, is white doing okay? Was the gambit worth it? Well, now it's actually saying it prefers black, so... And this is really just because you gave up all these pawns. Like, your development is better than opponents. But you gave up, like, so many pawns that it actually likes black's position. They still have to be careful because things could open up, but you're kind of starting yourself off in a worse position by going for the gambit like that. And now you open up for a queen trade, which I would guess the computer probably still kind of the same. But I think the point of gambits and giving up pawns is that you want to open up lines and try to attack. But when you allow this, you're just going into an end game. And then when you're in an end game and you're down material, it's much easier for the opponent to just win because they can just trade and then win the end game because they have more material. But in the middle game, the whole point of getting a lot of activity and stuff is just so you can try to attack and win in the middle game. Like you're creating weaknesses, giving up material because you need to checkmate them. But giving a queen trade after doing all that is counterintuitive to the point of that kind of opening. But okay, so queens do come off and you're down material, but you're winning some back, but even that is not enough to change the evaluation because again, you're down a pawn still and you're in the end game. So this is not what you wanted from the opening. But let's see what happens. So they take, and oh wait, you go here, take. I'm looking at the rook that's hanging here. It's probably not the best to take it right away just because they could give that fork. But I'm not really calculating it that well. But at this point, they've given you the rook for free, and now you're back in it. And yeah, so just taking the rook, let's see if you see it, you do. And now all of a sudden this is a completely different game. So, and I don't even remember if this was one you won or lost. Let me see. Oh yeah, it actually is one you won. So that's good. So let's see what happened. Because so far you're just up material, so like I would trade, yeah, so you just trade pieces, and you should be good to go. Now, one thing about when you are winning, you do have to be careful of any counterplay they have, and the only way you can really lose this game is by back rank mate, because they could go here, but then the bishop could come here. In some cases, right now a rook could just take it, but this kind of situation would force like a losing scenario for you. So that's always one thing to be aware of. So at some point, just pushing one of these pawns or moving the bishop, probably just pushing one of the pawns because you get a dark square to escape from. If you just move the bishop out the way, at some point they might cover the square with the bishop and still have a threat of back rank anyway. But in this situation, you can give this check and trade off the rook. And you do that. Well, you didn't take the rook. you go here, and now look, all of a sudden they blocked, so now you can't even trade the rooks. Like the simplest thing to do to win when you're in this situation is just to trade rooks, and now you're just up material. But you give this extra check, maybe hoping that the king goes away and then you win the rook for free, but like they could also go here. And then again, your best chance is gonna be maybe doing that, actually, maybe giving the check first, because then you'll be able to trade the bishop as well. And I'll just say like for here, like I'm thinking maybe this would make sense, because then you go here. Actually, no, it doesn't work out as well, because if you try to take the bishop, they would take the rook, so you would actually have to go back, and then if they trade, you got that. But that kind of situation is still a lot easier to win, just if you take the rook, than doing this, because now, like, the game kind of goes on more. Now, I'd probably just go bishop here to try to trade off the bishops, because that's like the next best thing you can go for. But you take a pawn, and okay. And now you do win some stuff. Now again, you have an opportunity to take off their rooks, and then there's really no way they're going to win. But you give an extra check, and now you take. It does work out better for you, but sometimes having too many pieces can lead to some stalemate opportunities, but you give like lots of checks, so no matter what, you're going to be fine, and you won that game. But there was a case where, I actually forgot. Okay, let's see. So again, queen's out early, but Scandinavian. And here, the first thing I noticed when they went here was you just look at all the squares they can go. Like, what are they threatening if they can move again? Well, this is hanging. And if they go here, it's really nasty because they're threatening to take the rook. And now the defense to that, like let's say you didn't see it, and they go here. The defense to this is to put the queen here, and now they can't really take that because of that. So you're only down a pawn. But in some cases, if they can get the bishop here, that's very annoying because now you can't take the queen, and the bishop is guarded by the queen, and you're pinned. So the fact that this pawn would be here is helping in that situation, but if the pawn wasn't there, it would be dangerous. So anyway, you didn't see it. They also didn't see it. And they actually made a very instructive blunder. So pause the video and see if you can find why b3 is a mistake. Now the problem is, if you look at our check capturing threats, we can check the king and threaten to win that. Now the question is, if you go here, does this, like, they kind of get compensation. So I don't really know exactly what's going on. Let's see, so is this even like good? No, it says bishop e2, so actually, yeah, you can't really take it because of this. It doesn't really work out. Actually, that's why, because they could just checkmate. But yeah, but let's say there was no checkmate, and they go here. Okay, yeah, then it would be fine. But that's because this was also hanging. So yeah, it does get kind of messy. But also keep in mind, if you were to, when they go here and they were threatening this, if you were to defend against it, and then they made that move, because they're probably going to make that move anyway, then it would have been a clear win of material. So yeah, the only reason like that tactic didn't work out as well was because you still had your own weaknesses that weren't covered. My foot's falling asleep. Okay, so turns out this wasn't the best play. I mean, at this point, it wasn't the best play because they have this. But it's still important to realize it, because I think at this level, like h66, they are not really seeing that they have the queen b7 counterplay. Like this was, for all intents and purposes, this was just a blunder. Okay, so Now, okay, we do have that situation again, because now we have the knight here. They cannot take on b7. Now this would be a good move. But you took the pawn instead, so you took free material, but again, you missed the tactic where you can fork and win the rook. Now here, I don't know how often you want to castle queenside, but my default thought would just be to move this pawn and get the bishop out and then castle as quickly as possible. And actually, is this a game you won or lost? I need to go to this. We're looking at this one. So another game you won. Okay, you go there, then you castle. And in these situations, I hate that it flips the board when you turn the engine on and off. But in these type of situations, like as black, you're trying to eventually push pawns, pawn storm, and open up their king and checkmate them, and they're trying to do the same to you. So let's see what happens. Also, this is a good outpost square for the knight, the d4 square, because no pawns can kick the knight. And also you have ideas of, it has the immediate threat of going here. Like, well, first the immediate threat is threatening the queen, but then depending on where the queen goes, you go here and then you're just winning the rook. So there's a lot of good things happening if the knight gets to d4. They give a check, you move out the way. You do find that. They move out the way. Unfortunately here, if you go here, the rook can get away. But it still looks really bad for him. Like maybe I'm looking at h6 as the first thing because the queen has to move even more. But okay, you do go there. And okay, you give a fork, but they can take the queen. You can take back with the bishop, and they get the rook to safety. So this is all standard. And you push the pawn. Okay, so basically just hung this pawn. But again, that's another like blunder check where you want to see. At this point, you had to recapture stuff, and they had to defend against their threat. And now you think, what checks capture threats do they have now? Well, they can go here, so maybe you want to move the rook here to protect. And then again, you move the knight, but it was the only thing that was defending. So this was attacked twice and defended once. And actually, it's not really that easy to defend against this. Like this pawn might be too overexposed because you can't move a rook to defend because the bishop would take. If you could probably go here, but it's possible they'll have some stuff and you'll get the rook onto an awkward position, so you might just be losing this pawn, unfortunately. So maybe it's not the worst thing. Now, the thing to be careful of here is this knight is hanging. And almost didn't see a square for it. Luckily, I guess this is good because the bishop takes, you could take, and if they go here, you could take that. Although I feel like you're losing material somehow. I'm also looking at just this move. Does this do anything? It's like a puzzle rush type thing where if they go here, you give this check, and now if they go here, you win some material. If they move out the way, you win that. And you're also defending the knight, which would be nice. So I'm interested to see if that was a good move. Yeah, bishop takes f2 is actually the best move in the position. And this is a move I only see because this theme comes up in Puzzle Rush a lot, where you give this check and then they take, you have this and you're winning some material. Now what is wrong with knight here? Oh, they could go rook b2. Or maybe it's just like you're down material in general, so that's why it doesn't like it. So yeah, you're just down a pawn already. And they have the bishop here. So again, having the bishop here is really helpful, especially in open positions. Like more likely than not, you're gonna want to have the bishop here to not have it. So giving it away for free is not always that ideal. So okay, this is what happened in the game though. And Okay, nothing else is going on. Then you give up the bishop here. I don't know if it works that well. Well, maybe it's fine. I'm gonna just turn the engine on. Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. So you take, good that you did not take the bishop because that would have hung the rook. And now, okay, I would take the bishop with the knight here. And you see the reason is you go here, you're winning material because if they go here, you can recapture with that. So this was like a blunder by the opponent. But you just move the pawn. So again, this is why tactics are important. And now here again, you have a chance to do this and still win, but you don't go for it. And so many cases where this is just the best move, every move you're making, just taking the bishop would have been the best move. Now you do that. Oh, this is a game you lost, or what happened here? No, this is a game you won, so that's good. So yeah, you won this game. But there are a lot of things that you could have done earlier to make it simpler. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Okay, in terms of openings, a lot of the times you don't want to put the knight on c6 in these. Like typically they would play d4 and you play d5 and then they play something like e3. But so this is kind of like a d4 opening. Like yeah, this says queen's pawn's opening. And usually the knight doesn't go here. So one thing you might see is like the Slav, where you go here and then you develop the knight here at some point. Sometimes you get the bishop out here first and then play e6, then go knight d7. But usually I would look and that's kind of hard to recommend because in terms of opening principles, just getting the knight out onto the 6th rank is like a natural move if you're just trying to follow the principles. Because it looks like when you play e4 as white, like if this was white and the king was here, it's like where I was saying e4 and then I like playing this next. But as black against d4, it's not really the best, but it's also not like something that really has to be super addressed, I don't think. Now, queen d7 does have to be addressed though, because this isn't, I don't feel like this is that great. You're blocking in the bishop and you're going into this pin. If they bring the knight here, that's going to be annoying because you can't take because they would take. So I feel like that's bad piece coordination. Now they just trade and give you the bishop here, so it works out. So actually black is probably better here. And you do a lot of that stuff. So you get the bishop out, you play e6, they get the knight to the square. Like I said, it's pretty good for them. And because your queen is out, you already have to move your queen a lot. And you can't even go to d7. You go here, but then this blocks off the scope of this bishop a little bit. Now they give up material. Is there anything after this? Like, no. So they just giving up more material. So is this a game you lost though? Yeah, this is a game you lose. So already, like if we look at the engine, you are winning a lot, winning by a lot. So at this point, you just need to trade pieces and win the end game. So one of the easiest ways to do that is probably just to put the knight here and then threaten to trade that, or really just try to castle by hand. So like at some point, move the bishop, move the rook, and then get the king. Like you were castling, but leaving a king here could be a problem. Like their main thing is they could eventually give this check. Right now it's not a big deal because you can just come back with the bishop, attack the queen, or even do this to attack the queen and then move the bishop here to develop. But let's see how the game progresses. So I do like this at this point, threatening to give the trade and actually win material. So it's fine to give the bishop pair back because you already won material. Okay. And you give this check. Is this trapping the queen? Like, wow, so you're at, how do you lose this game? You're up a queen. Okay. They can Okay, you do that. You could also give this check and then take this pawn after. They go there. I would have. You could go here and double attack the knight and threaten to give this check and take the pawn. You go there though. I don't know the point of rook c8. I mean, maybe I would have just kicked the knight a little bit, because like, where can it actually go? I guess what would have happened is they would have brought a rook here to kind of defend against it. But you go here, the knight is actually trapped because it can't go there because of that, can't go there because of that, can't go there because of that, and they can't go there. So basically the queen is just dominating all the knight squares. Well, actually not this one. If you go here, they can actually go here. But then it's probably super trapped when you do that. Actually, no way out. But if you go here, like if you turn the engine on, they're probably moving one of the rooks to the. Not actually just going knight takes. They're just giving it up. So what's the problem with this? Oh wait, no. Oh, they're just giving up. They're just simplifying material. So they would give up the queen in that situation. That's interesting. Okay. This thing keeps flipping the board. Oh, okay. So, yeah. So you go here, and now they get the knight, and they're attacking the queen. So you're getting some counterplay. But again, you're probably still winning here. You could take the pawn. You could go here, threaten to take this stuff. So you take the pawn. Now you go here. Now again, you could take the pawn and then take that one. But you go up there. And now you're all the way back. Like, you had an active queen, and you put it on the least active square it could be on. And actually, okay, I did see this game before, because I thought this pattern was sick. But, the problem is, so they give this check. And now they go rook here. And the queen is trapped. And I don't think I've ever seen, like, this queen trap before. But even this, it's not losing for you. Like, yeah, it's still winning for you. Just similar to how the queen sacrificed itself in that other line I looked at. You give up the queen for the rook. You still have more material than the opponent. But this definitely gave your opponent some counterplay, and could have been avoided by doing a blunder check before you go there. Okay, so you go there. And now I start to see, like, the only way to lose this game, similar to how before, where I said you have to make room for your king, or else their rook can come and their bishop can come. Now, the lose condition is this rook goes somewhere, and then they give this check. Actually, not exactly, because you would have this square so far, but it's still kind of scary. So you go there, you go. Now it's actually like a threat, because knight's guarding this stuff, so back rank threat is now made. So when they make this move, you have to think, if they can move again, what are they going to do? And then you look for their checks, captures, and threats, where their check is here, and okay, you can block with the rook and lose the rook, but the main thing is the king cannot go anywhere because that's blocked off. So what you do is you go here, you threaten a similar mate, so if you can move again, you're going to checkmate him because your knight is blocking their escape square, but you're just a move too slow. And they didn't see it. They did not go for this. They just went there, you gave a check, gave another check, went here, and now they found it. So they could have done it like a move earlier, but you both missed it. Okay, so let's take a look at this one, and you lost this one. So you go here, attack the queen, it goes back, that's nice. Okay, I kind of remember looking at this one too. So I would have taken with the queen. And the reason is, if they were to go here, this is similar to a theme we looked at before, where the queen can go here and threaten to win the rook. So take with the queen would have been really good. And the other thing about taking with the g pawn is that usually if you're gonna castle this way, you've ruined your king side. So king is going to be really exposed, more open to attacks. So at this point, you already probably want to just plan the castle queen side if you're doing this. But just taking with the queen, it's fine, because if they take here, you can just take that pawn, and you're probably winning some material. Okay, but now we get to an endgame. So now all that doesn't matter, so whether you castle or bring the king to the center doesn't matter as much. So they move the knight here. So the first thing you want to do for a blunder check, or not really blunder check, but just as what your opponent's threats are, if they move again, what are they going to do? Well, they got this fork. So I'd probably look into moving the king to d2. Or that might be better because you're developing the bishop as well. They go there. So things are fine. Move out the way. I would probably look to moving the king up just because you get the rooks connected, and so you get freedom to put the rooks like this rook probably go to this open file because there's no pawns on it, and this rook eventually goes to semi-open file. Not here while the knight's here, but if you go here, the knight has to get kicked anyway. But this one, because it's a semi-open file, so you're putting pressure on this pawn. Like if they castle, then the rook here is really good. If it's just the rook is here and they castle somewhere else, it's still decent, but it's not like but it's like, where else are you gonna put the rook unless you go here and you try to double rooks on the d file. So if when in doubt, you want to put your rooks on open files or semi-open files, whichever one's available, but prioritize the open files, or at least open files first. That's not like a always do this or always do that, but generally the open files are gonna be better when you can get like the rook to the 7th rank and start like eating up their pawns. Okay, but you go here, and now they put you in a pin, so that's another reason why king e2 probably would have been a little bit better. You wouldn't fall into like this pin. And look at this, you went king e2 anyway, so it's like you just gave your opponent extra moves when you could have just gone king e2 and gotten an extra tempo yourself by kicking the knight to the edge of the board. So this would have been way better than going here, letting them get their rook to the open file, and then going here anyway. Because again, because you allowed this, when they go here, you can't take the knight for free because they could just recapture. But in this situation, they can't go here because you could just take. So you wasted moves. You wasted a little bit of time by going king d1 and allowed them to avoid having to put their knight on a bad square. Okay, now here they recaptured. If they can move again, what are they going to do? They're going to take this free pawn. So most strong players, they're probably going to go here or here. Now this one gets a tempo on the rook, so that one's probably nice. But you go here, so you allow them to take this pawn. They do. Now they're threatening this pawn, so let's see if you defend against it. You do. I probably would have again preferred to move the king here to get the tempo, just because it's the end game. King activity is big there, but also you open up for the rooks to go to some of these squares. Instead of being a defensive piece, they can pretty much get the rook off of this file entirely just by moving the king here. Because they can't go here because they would get lost the bishop. They can't go here because the pawn would take. So you do go here, and again, so the theme here in this game is you make some moves that kind of waste time, and then you follow it up with the better move anyway, like later on, when it would have been better just to go king e3 in the first place. So king placement in the endgame maybe is one kind of theme to look at. Now they blunder their rook, so again, it's like hard to see how do you lose this game, but okay, they have a rook and a knight, so knights can be tricky, especially when you get low on time. But you are up material, and right here you're playing okay. Now you give a check, they're also attacking this pawn, so what should you do with the king? Well, you should make a move that defends the pawn, but you go the opposite way and let them take the pawn. So again, blunder checks, tactics, that's why this is what I'm mainly asking you to focus on, like the chess tempo stuff, is because these things should not be happening nearly as much. And like that's what you have to work on to get to the next level consistently. You go here, which is great, and now you can probably take that pawn, or you can kick the knight like you do. The only problem there is they defend the 7th rank, it might have been better just to take the pawn, because then you're threatening this as well. So like you can do this, they can take, and you can take, and maybe then you work towards getting your other rook to the 7th rank, and then they're really in trouble. Because now everything is kind of defended by them. You can't take the knight, you can't really make as much progress with your rooks, and you made some extra moves and hung the pawn again. I'm going to unload the pawn. You do get to the 7th rank. Now they make a blunder. Put the knight here. You could just take it, and now you're definitely winning again. But you go here, and you pretty much fallen for their like invisible fork. Like this wasn't a real fork. You could have just taken it, but you overlooked it, and that's why you lost this game. So the difference between winning and losing that game, the last decision came up to here, where if you just take the knight, you're definitely winning. But also, every step of the way, it's been like just hanging random pawns and like I mentioned the king moves. Like you could have gone here immediately, or what was the other one? In this case, was it this one? You could have gone here immediately. But those are minor mistakes compared to the other ones we looked at. So like if you are someone that was not hanging material quite as easily, then the decision for these king moves and how they wasted time would become a much bigger topic of discussion. But those are actually minor inaccuracies compared to just like this, where you moved a king and just hung the pawn. Okay. Now this game, you were black in this game and you won. Let's see, the last one, you lost. Okay. So this game you won as black. Again, you're going for the Scandinavian stuff. Yeah, we're kind of like a French or something, but I don't know. I don't know openings. Okay, and already this is kind of weird to play because your king side is open, and this is where you ideally want a castle. What you take, you win some material. Okay, that looks scary. Do you have to go queen d6? Yeah. I probably would go c5 here just to force a resolution to this pin. Because you can't move the knight because you would lose this. But you go here, you force them to kind of get some stuff traded. But you castle this way. Now, interesting, you can't go here, which would normally be a good move to trap the bishop because this would be checkmate. So it's a good thing you didn't fall for that. You do go here, though, which is interesting. It looks like you're just winning a queen. So they take, and you take the queen. Yeah, so that's good. So you're just up a coin. So, and actually, yeah, this was a game you won, so that's fine. And you threaten checkmate, and you checkmate, so that's great. So that's when the tactics work out. You didn't fall for the mate and won. You found the opportunity to take the queen, so that was a great game. Now this one, okay, now this is the reason why I like knight f3 on move 2 here. Because a lot of people don't notice, but if you go here, you can sacrifice this knight. If they go here, you go here. And a lot of people are gonna push the pawn, and then you go here, and you fork and win. And they could move the king, but now their king is open, they can't castle, you can get a whole lot of like momentum. So that's like, I remember when I was starting out, I used to have a lot of games like this because people just don't know not to move their f pawn when they want to castle on the king side, and they just run into a lot of problems. So maybe they mean to play like d6, which is a normal opening, fill door defense, but when they play f3, there's like this nice trap that just works out. But you go here, then they go there, then you go there. Okay, now here they just move c6. Now, a key thing about pawn moves is every time you make a pawn move, you're weakening some squares. So, like, let's say you move b3. The squares you weaken are going to be A3 and C3 because you were guarding these with the pawn, but now they're not protected by the pawn. They're protected by the knight still. But a similar thing happens here. So they move C6. So that means they're not protecting D6 and they're protecting B6 as much. But look at that. There's a bishop on B6. It's not protected by anything. You can just take it. But you castled. So again, this is the main types of blunders we're trying to target. You need to see like the hanging pieces. Just taking that bishop should just be automatic. Let they go here, and again, you still don't see it. You could still take it, and you finally do take it. So now you're winning, and now the whole point is you want to trade down and win material. They are attacking the rook though, so you probably want to do something about that. But you take a pawn, but that's not good. Now you take a pawn, and then you recapture the bishop. Okay, now you're giving up another pawn. You do trade. One thing I want to look at about this was if you go here, lines, let's see. Yeah, now was that the best move? Okay. I don't know if it was the best move, but I do like this because if they go here, you can give this check, and if they take, then you checkmate. And I guess there's some other things. It's a mate in 3, so you may or may not see it. But actually I don't even see it. Oh, it's this because of the pin. I'm guessing yeah, this one wouldn't checkmate. And it wouldn't really do that good job at winning the queen because your queen's also hanging. But yeah, there was some checkmates. I thought it would be like a more intuitive mate that just works against everything, but it only works if they take back on f7 with the rook. Like if you go here, it really works here the most. It's a little bit more complicated, so it's tougher to see, but just trading would be fine. I actually did go here, which is interesting, because now it's not nearly as strong. So I think you just blundered that, but here, like the bishop here, doesn't work anymore. So it would have been good if you found this idea earlier. And you did actually... Okay, so now you found another case where it works. But let's see what's going on. So yeah, you're still looking at the evaluation. Still doing really good. Oh, and then you fell into this. This is actually one of the most common tactics on chess.com. Eventually I'll have a video on it. But there's a ton of things where they just give up this queen and do that. So at this point, when they go here, they're already threatening it. So blunder check, if they can move again, what are they going to do? They can take and then sacrifice their queen and checkmate you. So you have to do something to protect this. Now taking the knight is free. That knight is just undefended. I guess you would be trading for that, but it's better to do that than to get checkmated. So go here because you're already winning. You're up 3 pawns, so just go here. They do that. It's fine, and get the bishop somewhere safe. But yeah, that's not that great. Again, a lot of these cases, you're either going for a pawn when you can win something better, or in this case, you're trying to win the knight when they have threats. So you make a move, you really have to look at what tactics does your opponent have if you do this, because it's not just as simple as, oh, you just take the knight and then wait for them to move and then you figure out what to do. If you do that, then you're just already going to lose. Okay, so that was all the games played in the last week. Next we went a little bit over an hour, so we got through all the games and we got through a lot of tactics. Again, for next week, still the chess tempo, training a little bit more. Like if we could do 15 puzzles, spending 1 minute each, that'd be great, or 3 minutes for 5 puzzles, something around that range, and just continue playing every day. That should be good. And the ratings have been increasing. I know you mentioned recently, like he got to 1,000 puzzles. Now he is pushing 1,100. But on Chess Tempo, we also want to see like a lot of improvement there. So hopefully that happens over time, and see you in the next one.